Hey there, all you SAT takers. It's the ACT SAT Math Prepmaster. Number 11. A circle in the XY plane has center 5, 7, and radius 2. Which of the following is an equation of the circle? Well, very simple question. Just know your equation of a circle. Oh, there it is. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where the center is hk and the radius, that's the center, and the radius is r. So notice the radius is 2. So in the equation that would be 2 squared, that's 4, so it has to be one of these answer choices here. And hk, the center, since it's x minus h squared and y minus k squared, that would be the answer here. These have to be both negative for this to be the correct answer, because these are both positive. If these were negative, or either one were negative, then these would be positive. Answer choice A. Level of difficulty from 1 to 10 based on students' ability to get the question correct without guessing. I will say this is a level 3.5. Know your formulas, students. Let's go to number 12. Number 12. In the figure above, triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. What is the value of the cosine of E? So looking at the two triangles, it says that they're similar. So similar triangles would have the same ratio of sides. So if you took the cosine of angle B in the first equation here, if you took the cosine of this angle, it would be the same as the cosine of angle E in the second triangle. So we're just going to take the cosine of angle B. Remember to use SOHCAHTOA. Let me spell that out for you. That's SOHCAHTOA. And that's just the way to memorize the way to solve these questions. Sine is S equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And the tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So in this question, it asks for the cosine of E, and the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, which one is adjacent? That's kind of the difficult one. This is angle B here. So the opposite is always the one opposite, like this. The adjacent one is this other one. That would be the 12. The hypotenuse, we know, is the one that's not straight. This 13 is the longest side. The hypotenuse is always opposite the 90-degree angle. So again, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 12 over 13. Adjacent, this is the adjacent side, and that's the hypotenuse. So cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Answer choice B. That's just a straightforward SOHCAHTOA question with a little twist on the similar triangle. Just remember, similar triangles, their sides have the same proportion or the same ratio, and their angle measures are always congruent in a triangle. So all three angle measures would be congruent if the triangles were similar. The level of difficulty on this question, it's SOHCAHTOA, so not everybody knows this, but you should if you're taking this test. I would say this is a level 5.5. All right, let's go to number 13. Number 13. In the xy plane, the graph of the function f of x equals x squared plus 5x plus 4 has two x-intercepts. What is the distance between the x-intercepts? Well, this is a quadratic equation, and which is a parabola, and it's going to hit the x-axis twice. Those are your intercepts. So if I were to draw a graph here, which is going to be difficult, it's kind of tough with this system I have. No excuses. But we would actually, the fastest way to do this would just be to factor, but I'm showing you the concept here of what they're talking about. So if we were to factor this, let's do that. X squared plus 5x plus 4. We need two numbers, remember, that multiply to 4 and add to 5. That would be 4 and 1. So you'd have x plus 4 and x plus 1. And you'd set this equal to 0, and you would solve, and you would say x plus 4 equals 0, and x plus 1 equals 0. And you subtract 4 from both sides. X equals negative 4, and this would be x equals negative 1. Those are your two zeros. And I wanted to just kind of graph this for you, but the main thing is just to get the zeros here. That's negative 1, and 1, 2, that's negative 4. How far apart, or what's the distance between them? 1, 2, 3. So that's a pretty simple question, but you just have to know how to factor. But just looking at this, this is a parabola, and it hits the x-axis 2 times. Those are the two x-intercepts. They're also called zeros. They're also called roots. So they have a lot of different names for the same thing. So the graph would look something like this. I know that the y-intercept is there. So the graph is something like this. Just to know the concept. Those are your two x-intercepts. Level 6 difficulty. Know how to factor, know the concepts, know what this means. I have other questions that relate to this. Let's go to question number 14. The square root of 4x equals x minus 3. What are all values of x that satisfy the given equation? Well, give us two possibilities. We could solve this, and when solving it, I'll show you that you actually get 1 and 9 as your answers, but one of them is an extraneous solution. So let's do that, even though the easiest way to do this question is just to plug the two numbers in. Let's plug in 1 and let's plug in 9, see which one works, and then I'll show you the other way just to know how to solve a radical equation if it were a more difficult question. So let's plug in 1 into x. So we have the square root of 4x, so square root of 4 times 1 equals 1 minus 3. So we plugged in 1 here for x, for this x, and 1 for this x. So that would be the square root of 4 equals 1 minus 3. Square root of 4 we know is 2, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2, so it doesn't work. Plug in 9. Do the same thing here. 4 times 9, we plug in 9 here for x. Plug in 9 for x. I'm plugging into this equation up top here, the original. 4 times 9 is 36. Square root of 36 equals 9 times 3. 6 equals 6. So this one checks out. Answer is 9. That would be 2 only. Answer choice B. I'll just show you quickly how to solve this. If you were solving this, normally you would square both sides. Square this side. Square that side. The square root of 4x squared. Anything, the square root of anything squared is itself, so that would be 4x. And when we square this, make sure we quantity square it. That's x minus 3 times x minus 3. And that gives us 4x equals x squared. Make sure you FOIL here on the right. Minus 3x plus 9. And that gives us 4x equals x squared minus 6x plus 9, combining the like terms. Subtract 4x from both sides. Subtract 4x from both sides. X squared minus 10x plus 9. Solving equals 0. We factor x and x. Minus 9 minus 1 equals 0. Remember, if you FOIL that, you get this. So x minus 9 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, x equals 9, x equals 1. Those are our two solutions. That's how we would normally solve this if we were solving it algebraically, and we'd plug them back in anyway. And then one would be what's called an extraneous solution, and our only answer is 9. Just showing you SAT takers. A little extra there for your knowledge. Let's go to number 15. Oh, this one is pretty easy because most of you just plug this in, get the right answer. I would say this is a level 3.5 of difficulty. Let's go to number 15. In the system of equations above, a is a constant. For which of the following values of a does the system have no solution? This is an SAT math special. They love having the systems of equations with a missing variable for either infinite or no solution. This question is the no solution type. So for the no solution type, we do elimination, and we want to cancel either the x's or the y's. Since we can't cancel the x's because we really don't know what a is yet. So we're going to multiply the top row by -2. Now we can multiply either the top row, the bottom row, or both rows, anything that makes them cancel when we add them together, and I'll show you what that means. So let's multiply each term. -2 times -3x gives us positive, write it down here, positive 6x. -2 times y is -2y. And that equals -2 times 6. Make sure you multiply all three, students. A lot of students fail at this point with elimination, but you won't. That's -12. Now I'm going to rewrite the second equation here. And right below it, put the line. Now we notice that the y's cancel. -12 plus 4 is -8. So to get a false statement is what we're looking for. We need this to be 0. We need to add those together to get 0. That's an A, not a 9. We need A to be something that makes that 0. So adding 6x to its additive reciprocal would be -6x. All right? That would be 6x minus 6x would cancel. 0 equals -8. Answer choice A. I would give this one a level of difficulty from 1 to 10 based on students' ability to get the question correct without guessing. I would say this is a level 6.5. Number 16 starts off with the equation T equals 5C plus 12F. A manufacturer shipped units of a certain product to 2 locations. The equation above shows the total shipping cost T in dollars for shipping C units to the closer location and shipping F units to the farther location. If the total shipping cost was $47,000 and 3,000 units were shipped to the farther location, how many units were shipped to the closer location? Well, that's a really long story. Well, it's just plugging into the given equation. We know that the T is the shipping cost. We know that C is the number of units to the closer location, and F units is the number to the farther location. So the two given things are the total shipping cost, which is $47,000, and 3,000 units were shipped to the farther location. So we're trying to find C, how many units were shipped to the closer location. Just plug it in and solve. T is 47,000. That's going to equal 5C plus 12 times F, which is 3,000. That's 47,000 equals 5C plus 36,000. Subtracting 36,000 from both sides of the equation. We get 11,000 equals 5C. Divide both sides of the equation by 5. And we get C equals 2200. That's your answer. This is the fill-in portion of the SAT, or the free response, as they call it. And your answer would be 2200. Let's go to number 17. Number 17, the absolute value of 2x plus 1 equals 5. if A and B are the solutions to the equation above, what is the value of the absolute value of A minus B? A little tricky question here, but when we solve absolute value equations, we do two equations. So this one equation, we're going to split into two different equations. We take away the absolute value signs as our first equation. And the second equation, we just make the right side, whatever it is, negative. Keep the left side the same and just make the right side negative. So it's easy since it's just a number or a constant. Now we're going to solve for each and we're going to get two answers. Boop. Subtracting 1 from both sides of the equation here, we get 2x equals 4. Dividing by 2, divided by 2, x equals 2 is our first answer. And our second answer, we're going to subtract 1 from the right equation here. Those cancel. 2x equals negative 6. Divide by 2, x equals negative 3. So our answers are 2 and negative 3, so that's A and B. Really don't know which ones are A and B. It does not matter because when we plug it into the A minus B absolute value, we're going to get the same thing. We'll either get 2 minus negative 3, if 2 were A and negative 3 were B, or vice versa, we would get negative 3 minus 2. Either way, we get 2 minus negative 3, we get absolute value of 5, which is 5. Or here we get absolute value of negative 5, which is also 5. So either way, our answer choice is 5 for our free response. That's number 17. And the level of difficulty from 1 to 10 is going to be a level 7. Little tricky question. Let's go back to 16 and give that a rating. Number 16 was a simple question, a lot of reading, so it will get a level 4 of difficulty. 18, another long story here with percentages. Juan purchased an antique that had a value of $200 at the time of purchase. Each year, the value of the antique is estimated to increase 10% over its value previous year. The estimated value of the antique in dollars 2 years after purchase can be represented by the expression 200A, where A is a constant. What is the value of A? Okay, so we're starting off, Juan is starting off with $200 at the time of purchase. And he is increasing 10% each year over the previous year. Now, this is kind of what they call an SAT trap. A lot of students are going to think that if you increase 10% each year, it's 10% plus 10%, that's 20%. That's the trap. It's not going to be 20% because when you increase 10% the first year, you have a new total. Let me show you what I mean. So with 200 the first year, if we increase that by 10%, here's the way that most students want to do this. They want to multiply by 0.10. That's 10%. That gives us 20. So 10% of 200 is 20. So after 1 year, Juan's going to have the 200 plus the 20. He's going to have $220. Now when we take 10% of 220, here's how I take a percent of a number. Just multiply it by the percentage. Don't do that whole part thing. Anyway, that's 22. 10% of 220 is 22. Just multiply it on your calculator. Add those together. You will get 242. That's what we're looking for. So 200 times something gives us 242. That's what Juan's going to have after 2 years. So let's look at this. 200A equals 242. We just have to solve for A. Just dividing by 200. Dividing by 200, and that reduces to 121 over 100, which in a decimal form, that's the correct answer. That would be, in decimal form, A would equal 1.21. That's a pretty tough question. That's the hardest one, I would say the most difficult one so far on this test, which seems like a fairly easy test so far to me in comparison to other tests that I've looked at. I'm going to give this one a level 8.5 of difficulty from 1 to 10 based on students' ability to get the question correct without guessing. And just a little side note, a way that I like to do the percentages, I did it this way because most students, when I show them the other way how to do percentages, when you add a percent onto something, they kind of go back to this. But I'm going to show you the easier way to do percentages. I'm sure some of you know this technique. But when you add 10% to a number, instead of multiplying by 0.10 and then adding that, you could just do that in one step. So if you started with 200 and you multiplied that by 1.10, that would give you the 10% increase because you're multiplying by the 1 for itself and the 0.10 would be the increase. That would give you immediately 220. Then if you multiply that by 1.10 again, that would give you 2.42. And that would be much easier to do that in 2 steps than 4 steps. Number 19. 2x plus 3y equals 1200. 3x plus 2y equals 1300. Based on the system of equations above, what is the value of 5x plus 5y? Well, we could solve for x and y in this equation, and it would take a couple minutes, and you could use elimination or substitution or whatever you wanted to use, but you can also just notice if you added the left sides together, 2x plus 3x is 5x, and 3y plus 2y is 5y, and if we add those together, we get 2500. So 5x plus 5y equals 2500. Well, if you see it, this is a simple question. Level of difficulty, give it a 3.5. Some people will see it. Some students will not see it and have to go through the whole process. Hopefully you'll see it. Let's go to number 20. If u plus t equals 5 and u minus t equals 2, what is the value of u minus t times u squared minus t squared? Hopefully this sets off an alarm. There's a trigger. Anytime you see the difference of squares, factor it on this SAT. So if you factor that, it becomes simple. It's just u minus t times, and the factoring of this is u plus t times u minus t. Now just substitute. Another thing that we're looking at more than one variable. Most students are used to in high school solving for one variable. On an SAT. A lot of questions you'll solve for more than one variable, so it's a little different. So look at u plus t equals 5. So u plus t is 5, and the u minus t is 2. Doesn't matter which order when you multiply. So it's 2 times 5 times 2. 10 times 2 is 20. Free response, I'll give it a level 7.5 of difficulty. Well, that concludes the non-calculator portion of the October 2018 SAT. Thank you, students, for watching. Next video will be the calculator portion. Good luck on your SAT. Hope you crush it.